Hello and welcome to GameSack. Usually home ports of arcade games are considered worse because the platform they're on is weaker and obviously the ROM space of the home port is less than that of the arcade original, but sometimes the home ports are better than the arcade for a variety of different reasons, so let's check out some examples of that. First up is a game that I first discovered on the Super NES. Thought I was going to say Super Graphics, didn't you? Nope. Here's UN Squadron from Capcom and Diaper, released to the arcades in 1989. This is based on a manga called Area 88. It's a horizontal shooter where you fly an airplane. You can pick among 3 different pilots, but I gotta choose the F-14 because that's my favorite jet. You know, because afterburner. Then an old guy sells you a secondary attack, which is always useful for the mission you're about to embark on. You can also buy a longer life bar and some shields. And then off you go, fighting your way through 10 stages of crazy enemies. It's a good thing you have a life bar because it's easy to take damage in this one. You can collect power-ups once you defeat a batch of red enemies, and different colors will increase the power of your main gun a different amount. If you die, that's it. You only have 1 life, but you can continue right where you died. You tend to fly your plane in areas where you probably shouldn't be flying a plane, and enemy planes will drop down in perfect formations in these same areas. These pilots are crazy. Sometimes, as you're passing a boss, you don't have enough time or firepower to kill it completely. So you turn around and start to scroll the other way, and you keep going back and forth until you finish the job. The graphics are quite nice, which of course is typical of any Capcom arcade game of the time. Plenty of color with detailed foregrounds and backgrounds. There's also a lot of animation on most of the sprites. The music is okay. I mean, it's fine, but it's not gonna win any awards. The very worst thing that this game does is sound a constant alarm when your health is low. For some reason, Capcom felt that people would really like that and it would be in their best interest to include it. And I guess they were right, since Capcom is still a huge company today. UN Squadron came home to the Super NES in 1991. This was one of the earlier games on the console, and considering that, it's amazing how faithful a lot of this is. This was a favorite game of Billy's, who you may remember from the Game Chasers. It's practically the only thing that he ever played on his live streams. Well, this and Mario 3. I always teased him about it, so it's impossible for me to play or hell even think about this game without being reminded of stupid Billy. I sure miss that guy. Anyway, on the Super Nintendo, it's still a horizontal shooter where you fly an airplane and stuff. You also still choose between the 3 different characters, but they don't have their own planes this time around. Instead, planes are things that you buy, and each character will ultimately have the same selection of planes and weapons. Each plane also has secondary weapons that you can buy. Of course, the better planes can choose from more. But that's not all. You can also buy multiple types of secondary weapons now. During a stage, you can select between them with the tap of a button. You can no longer buy life extensions or shields, but you can sometimes find shields during the stages. Once again, as you kill red enemies, you'll collect power-ups, but each plane can only be powered up so far. You still have a life bar, but it works a little bit differently. When you take a hit, your life bar goes crazy and a warning tone sounds. If you can manage not to take a hit for the next few seconds, then you're okay, but your life bar is a little bit drained. If you do take another hit when you're flashing danger, well, you're toast. Fortunately, there's no constant warning siren when your life bar is really low like there is in the arcade. If you die, you need to repeat the entire stage, but you keep all of the experience and money that you have. This version adds a world map between the stages. And we all know that Nintendo players certainly love their world maps. This makes the game non-linear, but you can't repeat the stages. While you still have 10 official missions, there are also some optional EX missions where you swoop back and forth trying to take out a few ground targets before the timer runs out. Some of the stages have changed, and you even have some new bosses. Like this guy, he's a pain in the ass. The final ship that you need to fly around at the end of the game is still here, but now it's red and much smaller, however it feels a lot tougher. Graphically, the game looks great for such an early title on the console, with some smooth sky gradients here and there. It's not quite as colorful as the arcade, and there's certainly a lot less animation, but it holds up quite well. It uses some of the Super Nintendo's special features, like this super cool Mode 7 runway. Intense! Between the stages, you even get a spinny view of the jet. Oh, and this submarine surfaces with extreme force and it uses rotation. Pretty cool. The music features similar tunes as the arcade, but they sound way better here. I mean, this has never been my favorite soundtrack from Capcom, but I think it took me playing through the arcade version for me to appreciate it more. While it's not a night and day knockout victory over the arcade game, I do feel that this game is best experienced on the Super NES. Also, if I went and said the arcade was better, I'm pretty sure that Billy would haunt me.
We all know that GameSack is the worst internet show to ever exist. You watch 5 minutes of it and it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly.
It's impossible for a home port of a fighting game to be better than the arcade, right? Of course not. But if someone pointed a gun to my head and said, "Hey you, play Street Fighter the movie, the game," I'm sure as hell not choosing the arcade version. Ah yes, it's Street Fighter the movie, the game, from Capcom, released in 1995. This of course is based on the exciting movie known as Street Fighter the movie with all of these stars that you see here. The game uses digitized images of each actor, well, at least their heads anyway. The graphics kinda look like Street Fighter meets Mortal Kombat. Actually, you know what, it looks a lot cheesier than that. It reminds me more of Pit Fighter. Most of the characters from the real game are here, along with a few new ones. The fighting action is, well, okay, it's not very good. Most of your moves are here, but they can be tough to pull off reliably sometimes. Plus, the twitchy way that everything moves just throws everything off. In fact, it feels more like a crappy digitized fighting game that you'd find on the 3DO than a proper Street Fighter game. And that makes sense, because it was made by a Western developer called Incredible Technologies and not Capcom themselves. You can really feel it in the gameplay, and I'm surprised that Capcom was okay with this. I was able to find some success using only medium attacks, as it seems that they're rarely blocked. Fighting as you normally would in a Street Fighter game won't yield the same results. You can build a super meter, but I was never able to fill it up. The graphics are grainy and rough, cheesy looking like Pit Fighter as I mentioned. A few stages have multiple layers of scrolling, but most don't. You don't even get the cool line-scrolling floor of normal Street Fighter games. Well, hold up, actually you do, but only in this stage right here. The voices are pretty unenthusiastic in most cases, and you can tell that most of these actors were phoning it in. The music isn't noteworthy at all. There's no way that Street Fighter the movie, the game comes home.
Dragon! Dragon! Hurricane! Hurricane!
But it did later that same year, first on the Saturn in North America. This was developed by Capcom themselves, but published by Acclaim for some reason. It starts out with a full motion video opening of some of the action scenes from the movie. As far as the actual game goes, this one is a ton better. For one, it plays like Super Street Fighter 2 does. Your moves happen as you'd expect them to, the physics and speed are correct, and everything else feels great. Much better than you'd think simply looking at this game. It's incredibly easy to build your super meter here, and you pull them off just like you do in Super Street Fighter 2. Playing this immediately after the arcade version is a true breath of fresh air and just goes to show you that Capcom made a huge mistake having someone else develop the arcade. From the main menu, you can choose Movie Battle. You play as Guile, and this mode does its best to follow the events of the movie. You even get cutscenes that explain the story and all of that. You can even choose where to go next, and of course that changes who you end up fighting. I really kinda suck at playing as Guile though. Oh well. The Street Battle mode is like a regular Street Fighter game where you can just choose from a bunch of different characters to play as. Graphically, this one is both better and worse than the arcade. It's worse because your fighters are smaller and feature less color and animation than the arcade, even though these are the same digitized graphics. The backgrounds are a lot better though. Each character has their own scene, and you get parallax layers and the line-scrolling floor in every single one of them. Not that these digitized backgrounds look great or anything, but they're certainly much better than the arcade. Even the music is a lot better. This stuff certainly isn't classic, but it sounds more like a real Street Fighter game, something from the Alpha series maybe, which hadn't come out yet when this was released. The voices have even been replaced by the Japanese actors who usually do the games. It was also released on the PlayStation as a launch game for the console in North America. It's basically the same as the Saturn game, so just choose the platform that you prefer. Yeah, overall, it still looks bad, but you should play this. It's better than you might think. Here's Tecmo Bowl from Tecmo, released to the arcades in 1987. This is a dual-screen football game for up to 4 players. Each team can have 2 human players, and you get assigned the names of Larry, Bob, Eric, and John. You are allowed to be no one else. Each team has 10 players per side instead of 11 like real life. And there are no real teams here. You play as the Bulldogs and the Wildcats. On offense, the game seems to select your play for you. However, you can choose which receiver or running back the ball will go to before the snap. Be careful passing as the computer loves to intercept, but what can you do? Defense is a lot more boring, so try not to play defense. Maybe just walk away from the machine and then come back after the enemy scores and the ball is yours again. You have a jump button which doesn't really seem to be worth pressing. Each token you insert gives you 1 minute of playtime, and once you run out, you get a Larry game over. The controls are awkward and slow, but hey, this is a 1987 video football game. The graphics look nice, though kinda chunky, and the game can slow down when all of the sprites start moving at once. The music is fine, and there are a few voices that the game shouts to help a bit with the authenticity. All in all, it's a decent football game for its time. In 1989, Tecmo Bowl came home to the NES. You're greeted with an incredibly distorted field that's extremely long and skinny, just like, never mind. But the gameplay is certainly better than the arcade. It's a lot more snappy. Each team has 9 players this time around. You can choose between 4 different plays on offense. Running the ball will sometimes yield results, and passing the ball will result in an interception almost every single time. At least it does when I play as Denver, and I refuse to play as any other team because I need to represent my own geographical location. I mean, come on, I'd be a traitor if I chose any other city, right? On defense, you weirdly choose among those same 4 plays, but basically you're just guessing which of those 4 plays the enemy is gonna run. Choose correctly and hell yeah! This game has an NFL license, but only for the player names. They didn't license the team names or the logos. They did kind of get the colors right though. The music here is more excitable than the arcade, and the players seem to bounce all over like rubber balls, giving the entire game a rather silly feel. It also has some cool voices to add to the energy level. As I said, the graphics are distorted, plus there's quite a bit of flicker. About the best thing I can say about the visuals is that there's a cool touchdown scene. That's not in the arcade. I really do wish that I wasn't intercepted 90% of the time I throw a pass. It's quite frustrating for me. Lots of people love this one though, and they keep hacking it to keep the roster current, so it certainly has a dedicated following, and I think that right there is pretty damn cool.
Ready, down, put. Ready, down, put.
Next up is one of my favorite games of all time, as well as the inferior arcade version which preceded it. The arcade is still crazy awesome though. You knew I had to talk about the original Monkey Ball from Sega at some point. This is the arcade game that started the entire franchise right here in 2001. You are a monkey trapped inside of a ball for seemingly no reason whatsoever, and you need to tilt the board he or she is on so that the monkey rolls to the goal. For whatever reason, the monkey likes this. The monkey also likes bananas, specifically Dole bananas. No other brand will do. They're scattered around the various levels, and getting 100 of them gives you a 1-up. I usually don't prioritize grabbing them because honestly, I generally don't need the extra lives. In the arcade, the game plays with a unique banana-shaped analog stick, which is kind of novel. Playing the arcade game emulated here at home, I'm using an Xbox 360 controller, which is not ideal for anything, but I personally think it's better than the banana joystick. Hell, I was able to get past this level on the first try without too much of an issue, so the controls using this setup are still way better than the modern Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania on any platform. The gameplay is challenging and I absolutely love it. You have 3 levels of difficulty, each with unique stages. You also have 3 monkeys to choose from. I usually pick Baby because he's small and that helps me see a bit more of the stage, or at least that's the logic that my dumb brain has always used. The graphics are simple yet very pleasing and clean, with a lot of hyper-saturated colors. The music is alright, not bad, not great. Overall, this is a really cool game. Barely a few months later in that very same year, Super Monkey Ball came to the GameCube. This is a port of the arcade and then some. Actually, if I'm being honest, it feels more like a finished version of the game. You have the same 3 levels of difficulty which contain the same stages, and the way to beat them is identical. Actually, there are more master levels here which you need to be really good to even reach, and even better to finish. A 4th monkey has been added, a big guy named Gon Gon. I've seen a lot of people use him as they play, so he's definitely a favorite. The gameplay feels absolutely fantastic with the GameCube's analog stick. It really doesn't get any better than this. Hell, I'm pretty sure that it can't. Your monkey seems to have a bit more oomph as he rolls around the stages. However, this can be achieved in the arcade game if you have access to the service menu. Just toggle the ball velocity boost to on. This makes the game a lot more enjoyable, and thankfully it's always enabled on the GameCube. As you can see, the game has undergone a huge visual upgrade for the better. Everything is now textured, and while the game remains colorful, it's not super oversaturated like the arcade. Some of the graphical effects are similar, like the glistening of the checkerboard floors in this set of levels here. It looks way better on the GameCube though. We still get the Dole branding here, which makes the game a lot more exciting for everyone. They've also added structures to the backgrounds. What's more is that many of these structures have collision programmed into them, meaning that they're solid. So you can cheat on round 8 in expert mode simply by bouncing off of the background and then boom, you're at the goal. Hell yeah! Round 8 in the expert mode in the arcade has no background to bounce off of, so instead of completing the stage, you can go straight to hell. The music has been changed and upgraded tenfold. It's completely new and all of it is rather good. They also brought in a rather excited human announcer to replace the robotic voice of the original arcade game. All of this makes the game way better than the arcade, but they didn't stop there. Now, you also have 6 different party games and mini games to play. You have Monkey Fight, Monkey Race, Monkey Billiards, Monkey Golf, Monkey Bowling, and my favorite, Monkey Target. I am so out of practice with this one, and this entire game honestly, but it's incredible taking turns with friends trying to get the most points. The arcade game has a bog standard credit scroll which is pretty boring, but Super Monkey Ball has even made that its own game where you try to collect as many bananas as you can. Run into the letters and you lose bananas. You get a different title depending on how many bananas you collect by the end of the credits.
Congratulations!
When it comes down to it, the original Super Monkey Ball on the GameCube here is the best Super Monkey Ball game that has ever existed. or ever will exist.
I got Super Monkey Ball for the GameCube.
Oh, I love Super Monkey Ball.
Dude, you like Super Monkey Ball? Him. Bro, I knew I liked you, dude. Come here, bring it
Oh.
in.
Alright, here's one for you. Gauntlet from Atari Games, released in 1985. In this maze game, you play as one of 4 characters, depending on which joystick you use, each with their own characteristics. You wander around the levels collecting things and destroying enemies. But you really want to destroy the monster generators, or you're quickly going to be overwhelmed. Make sure you have enough keys to break through the barriers and get to the exit to the next level. The game is rather difficult with just a single player. I die rather quickly, so having 3 other people would help tremendously. I don't think I've even met 3 other people in my entire life, so I guess I'm out of luck. The graphics are quite good for their time and definitely enhance the smooth gameplay. There are a lot of voices here which will tell you the rules for the game.
They need to open door.
The only real music is at the title screen, and the same tune plays between each level. Otherwise, you play without music. This is a fun and definitely a classic game.
Help. Need food. Badly.
Gauntlet came to the Genesis in 1993 from M2 and Tengen, and it's known as Gauntlet 4 everywhere except Japan. And well, it's basically just like the arcade version, though the resolution is a bit lower, but you'd be hard-pressed to tell. The colors, however, are now much brighter and perhaps slightly less saturated. Beyond all that, though, the visual design is exactly the same as it was in the arcade.
Remember, don't move.
The smooth gameplay is exactly the same, and you can even play 4 players simultaneous with either of the 4-player adapters available for the console. This one adds some incredible music over the action though, just excellent stuff. This right here makes the game light years better. I mean, wow. Most, if not all, of the voices are even in here, though they do sound a bit rougher than the arcade.
Go to open door.
I think the gameplay might have been ever so slightly rebalanced, but maybe that's just the nice rapid-fire shot helping out. This version also lets you adjust a lot of options for the game if it's too tough. But they went all out and added a quest mode. Now, this isn't a full-fledged RPG or anything, but it's a really nice addition. You're looking for crystals within the 4 elemental towers, and you need to fight dragons and stuff. The treasure that you collect is used for money that you spend in shops to help upgrade yourself. This is a nice addition, though it is a bit clumsy. The transition times between each floor will make you very impatient. And there's dual passwords, one for the game and one's for the towers themselves. It's really weird. It could definitely use a battery save function. But it's still a nice addition, like I've said 3 times now. In the end, this is the preferred way to play the original Gauntlet. Staying in the 16-bit era for now, Data East is back with another game with a Russian name. And no, it's not Karnov. This is Atomic Runner Chelnov from Data East, released to the arcades in 1988. You control a dude who is always running. The only other things that he can do are jump and shoot. You can't move to the left. Your guy is just too dumb for that. Yes, you can stand still, but you can't run left. You do have a button that will make you turn around in case you have something on the left that you need to shoot behind you. You can bounce off of most enemies as well. You have an abundance of power-ups and weapons that you can collect. So yeah, the game is awkward to control, and it does take some getting used to. I imagine it probably put a lot of people off of the game back in 1988, but I can't say for sure. I've never seen an Atomic Runner machine in the wild. But once you do get used to those controls, the game actually becomes rather fun. It's very difficult and you'll die a lot, but you don't get set back tremendously far. You feel that you could do it if you could just try again, and again, and again, and maybe again. It gets expensive if you're popping in tokens. At least I assume I can just continue for free because, yeah. But it's the kind of challenge I like, where the game just begs me to keep trying. Each level has a mini boss that will eventually go away if you don't kill it in time. And of course, there's a main boss at the end of each very long level. During these boss fights is the only place where you can actually move in both directions. The graphics are decent, but there's only one layer of scrolling, which is strange for an arcade game from 1988. The music is alright, but I wish there were more of it. In 1992, Data East brought Atomic Runner home to the Genesis, ditching the lame Chelnov part of the name that nobody liked. I covered this before in a Criminally Overlooked Games episode. They added a lot more backstory to this one compared to the arcade. That's because players at home demand complex stories to their games. Not only that, but they added a ton of different ways to control the game. The method I like is where the A button shoots left, the B button jumps, and the C button shoots right. I mean, this right here already makes it 20 times better than the arcade, as it feels more natural to play. The same rules apply with this version when it comes to the actual gameplay. Many of the levels have been expanded or redesigned. Oh, and as you can see, they really improved the graphics. Almost everything has been redrawn from scratch. We now have much more detail and color in many of the stages, and some excellent parallax scrolling, which really adds to the depth of the visuals. The music has also been improved, and there's more of it, and it's now in stereo. The gameplay offers that same type of challenge that the arcade does, and you'll want to keep trying and trying. But here, you have a limited number of continues, but you can increase it up to 15 in the options screen. I go into more depth on this game in episode 408, so check it out. But now you know it's better than the arcade game in every way, and now you know why as well. Here's Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution from Sega, released in August of 2002. This, of course, is a 3D one-on-one fighting game where up to two completely different people can play at the very same time. We get a couple of new characters to choose from in this one. Virtua Fighter usually doesn't add too many characters to the roster between each subsequent game. This is an updated version of regular-ass Virtua Fighter 4, which itself introduced two new characters, and the other characters have been tweaked as well. The fighting action is similar to the previous three games in that you have guard, punch, and kick buttons. You can no longer jump by simply pressing up like you could in the first two games, but you can still jump. Pressing up and kick gives you a low jump, and pressing up and punch yields a higher jump depending on various conditions. This is different than Virtua Fighter 3, which made you press down and then up to jump. In this game, pressing up helps you move around in 3D space. The game still has ring outs, but most of the stages have barriers to minimize or completely prevent ring outs. Some of those barriers can be broken. The stages here are all square-shaped, unlike many of those found in Virtua Fighter 3. You fight your way through 10 stages and then face Dural, or Dural, or Dural. But anyway, this is a bonus stage. Doesn't matter if you win or not, the game ends after the match is over. You get some credits and that's it. Not even an ending for your character, but hey, it's Virtua Fighter, what do you expect? About the only other thing to do in this game is press start while choosing a character for a different costume. The game plays extremely well, and it's super fun to keep trying as you get your ass handed to you. The graphics are really good, a definite noticeable leap over Virtua Fighter 3, but not a mind-blowing difference. We still have a few stages here that has some ground that reacts, like this snow here, just like the last game. Also, the backgrounds do seem kind of detached since you're always stuck in the square ring. I really like how Virtua Fighter 3 did it. The music is good, nothing bad here, but it really doesn't stand out much. It's just generic heavy guitar stuff with little personality. Overall, this is a great game that people really love, and for good reason, but for me, it's not as memorable as the first two games. Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution came to the PlayStation 2 a year later. You have the arcade game, of course, as well as the Versus mode. You can even choose the alternate uniform. The fighting action is the same, and so are all of the fighters and the stages. However, you may notice a ranking card that shows up with 0 wins, and that number never changes as you win matches. Yeah, I'll talk more about this in a bit. You can still beat Dural, Dural, and once again, you just get a credit roll. But they didn't just slap the arcade game on a disc and call it a day. That's right, now you can save a replay of any match to the memory card. That right there makes it way better than the arcade. Oh, and sometimes there's a mission you can accomplish during the fight, like landing 16 strikes or making more strikes than your opponent makes on you. If you can do this, you'll get a cool item, like 50 Gs. That's awesome, who doesn't want 50 Gs? And that's it, Virtua Fighter 4 is better played at home. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. You now have the Quest mode. Here, you visit various Sega arcades and enter them. They all have tournaments that you need to win. In order to fight in the tournament, though, you'll need to meet the requirements of that particular arcade. No matter how good you are, you're going to be at each arcade for a while, as some require you to win dozens and dozens of fights. Then you get to the tournament, and here you just need to win every single match. After you win the tournament, you can visit a different arcade which has stronger players and different entry requirements for their tournament. Often, as you're battling other players to meet these requirements, you'll rank up your skill level by earning experience. You'll also get prizes like items and money. Back out on the menu screen, you can edit the character's name and all that sort of stuff. There's also a shop where you can buy mostly stuff to customize how your character looks. I like this Virtua Fighter 1 model. I can use this in the main arcade and the Versus mode, but not in Quest mode. The gameplay remains entirely Virtua Fighter 4 though. Also, once you try the arcade mode again, you'll see your current stats from the Quest mode, assuming you choose that same character. The Quest mode is a fantastic addition to the game, and it will eat up a ton of your time, and it adds so much to the replayability. But they didn't just slap the arcade game with a few new frills and an in-depth Quest mode on a disc and call it a day. That's right, there's also Virtua Fighter 10th Anniversary, which is hidden in the options screen. Here, the game is basically like Virtua Fighter 1, with everyone being rendered with these basic but cool-looking polygonal models. Even the new characters. The gameplay is also more like the first Virtua Fighter game. You can do a floaty jump by directly pressing up all by itself, but you do have some moves from Virtua Fighter 4 as well. You also get 60 frames per second, which is twice as fast as the original arcade. The graphics in the PlayStation 2 game here aren't as crisp as the Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution arcade. That's because the game only runs in interlaced mode, whereas the arcade version only runs in progressive mode. The PS2 version looks great on a CRT, but you can still tell it's not quite as nice as the arcade game. Progressive is always better than interlaced. It's not helping that the PlayStation 2 version is also a bit more desaturated and probably has a few less polygons, but I'm not entirely sure on that. The music is all the same, but there's more of it now since the Quest mode has its own stuff. All in all, the home version here on the PlayStation 2 is the best way to play the game for whatever reason, unless you hate extra content. And man, it would be absolutely perfect if it had a progressive scan option.
Fight one! Ready? Go!
And there you go, more games that best their arcade counterparts. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? About the only one I could maybe see an argument for is UN Squadron, but not any of the others I talked about here today. And what are some other home ports that you feel are better than the arcade? Why? Let me know. And thanks for listening to me talk for a little over a half hour.
Well, okay. Listen here, GameSack. I don't need you or anyone else telling me my opinion on what a game should and should not be. I don't need you to tell me if I like a game or don't like a game. I have my own thought process and I have my own opinions. I don't need you or anyone else to try to convince me that a game is better than what I think. If I want to hate on a game, if I think it's crap, I have every right as a free American to believe that it is crap. and I don't need you telling me what I should think.
Are you still playing Axley? Well, I hope you get rabies on your face and die. You need to play Slam City with Scottie Pippen on the Sega CD 32X instead. Scottie Pippen has put his face on the greatest game of all time. Slam City was filmed in Hollywood with real basketball players.
Axley wasn't filmed in Hollywood.
Holy crap, look at that. It's a real interactive movie. It says right here that is rated T for teens. They're not lying, it's totally true. No kids allowed. Scottie Pippen ain't got time for babies.
Earned some real respect.
Do you want to play Ground Zero Texas instead?
Well, I hope you get trapped inside your house as it burns to the ground.
Ground Zero Texas only requires a Genesis and a Sega CD.
Slam City with Scottie Pippen requires a Genesis, a Sega CD, and a 32X. That's the ultimate gaming setup! Slam City with Scottie Pippen on the Sega CD 32X!